Hi, welcome, welcome everybody. My name is Allison Schumacher. I'm the Director of Academic Alchemy for the VCU Da Vinci Center's academic programs. And I want to welcome everybody who is here in person on our Zoom and who will be watching this later. We are here to interview one of our fantastic MPI students who is finishing up this semester, Michael Martis. We'll join him in a minute and give you a whole bunch of details on the Master of Product Innovation program and what it might be able to provide and what it looks like. This is the crown jewel of the Da Vinci Center. It is something where we are very much focused on the humans who apply to this program and meeting them where they are and helping them achieve what they want to achieve throughout the program. And part of that's even helping them figure out what they want to do with this particular degree. So we're very invested in our students and very excited to be talking to new potential students to see, who's the next group that's going to join this this wonderful organization that we have with our students. And I see that smile, Michael. He knows I'm not messing around here. I'm not inflating things here. But this is just really a really unique program that focuses on applied education. We don't take any tests in our program. It is all about really focusing on challenging problems and executing and really using those deductive reasoning and problem solving skills throughout the entire program and building up that portfolio and the confidence that it can take to know how to do this stuff and then go out in industry and do it, or start your own business and potentially do it for yourself. So we're going to kind of get started, but let me have Mary, Chris, and Michael introduce themselves. Mary, do you want to go first?
Sure. Yes, I'm excited to be here with you. My name is Mary Chris Escobar. I'm the Associate Director of Student Success here at Da Vinci. And so I sort of work with you through the whole life cycle in the program, all the way from meetings like this until you graduate. So excited to be here, and Allison and I will be talking kind of in the second half of this session about all the nitty-gritty details of the program, but super excited to have Michael here. I'll pass it over to Michael to introduce himself.
Hey guys, yeah, Mary Chris and Allison pretty much covered everything. I'm an MPI student. I started last fall and I'll be finishing this December. Yeah, I started undergrad here at VCU as well, and I'm sure we'll get into some of this with the questioning as well, but I was a pre-med student at VCU and I was enamored with the healthcare innovation program. So I'm a healthcare innovation student here. But yeah, that's a little short form of me.
Can you talk a little bit about your background?
Sure, yeah. So studying at VCU, I'd come in, again, like I said, very pre-med minded. I studied biology for my first major, and with pre-med here, you get a minor in chemistry as well. And then my junior and senior year, similarly to what would happen after my undergrad graduation, I was like, oh, I have this extra time. I do love biology and I love chemistry, but there's something more I want to explore. I have a couple extra credits. What can I do? So I ended up adding a bioinformatics major, which overlapped with my biology. And I was able to kind of use that lens to delve farther into computer science and programming, scaffolding from biology. And just for fun, I added a psychology minor as well. Just gotta have a little bit extra time as well. But loved learning, loved VC, and loved how everything connected. And yeah, that was a lot of my research and mentality coming out of undergrad.
Yeah, I asked you to elaborate a little bit more because I know how cross-disciplinary you are in education and in training, but your interest too, just being able to think nebulously about any given problem and how it might impact in the arts or in sciences and all these different things. So
Exactly.
I have a feeling that might be part of your answer for this first question, but it's just something that such a strength that you brought to the program, just having these interests in different places. You didn't have to have all those majors to necessarily get into this master's program, but that interest in other ways of problem solving and other ways of looking at the world really is a great foundation for the mindset that we're trying to teach students here. How do you problem solve? How do you break down a problem? How do you make sure it's connected to people and users?
Exactly.
So tell us a little bit about what drew you to the MPI program initially.
So again, like you just said, it's a lot of the problem solving. And even initially, everyone wants to solve problems, but learning about what that even means is kind of what we do at Da Vinci. And one of the first things that kind of enamored me was that it's not really just about the knowledge you have and the solutions you can come up with, but even more importantly, it's making sure you're asking the right questions, making sure you're not making assumptions and you're not following too far down the line where you see this all the time, horror stories and product and case studies that we've talked about. You spend tons and tons of money on a prototype building it, and it's not needed, or specific features are wasted in a certain way that if you had brought your customers along for the ride, you may have realized, oh, this isn't necessary. I wouldn't have had to waste my money here. Or it could be anything from marketing to specific engineering of your product to even just the user-centeredness of it, and all of those facts together, I was like, oh, there's so much that in undergrad, especially, you're taught how, even though they do say it's application of knowledge, it is very educational, where you're taught a very specific framework in a very specific problem solving way, rather than it being, okay, this knowledge is a tool I can use in a more abstract way to solve a problem later, rather than it just being a cycle. And that sounds very vague, and it may sound very hard to grasp, but as Allison said, it's very nebulous and very enigmatic in a way. But that's part of who we are as people. We all have very unique interests, and we bring different things to the table and can solve problems in different ways. So yeah, long-winded way of addressing that, but yeah.
Exactly. I mean, just knowing that intelligent, creative people, I'm a firm believer that everyone's creative, although I think sometimes that's taught out of us over time, or we're taught to believe that we're not creative because, maybe we can't draw, or, we're not a photographer, or those kinds of things, but it's not completely linked to the arts. And there's a great power in not having all the information, but having the mindset to be able to address problems just in creative ways and from the lens of various different backgrounds. So it can be pretty ambiguous, but I think the point you were making is best wrapped up in a quote from one of our other alumni from the program. Alan Ireland at one point said, if you want to do anything, Da Vinci is everything. And just kind of allowing yourself to be able to go into virtually any direction, completely different than maybe where you were in undergrad, or just being able to enhance, the learning that you've already had out into the world. So tell us about what you're working on this particular semester in your final class in 652.
Sure. So, as I just kind of mentioned, at the end of my undergrad, I got into computer science and especially the applications in the world. You see AI exploding and everything. I was kind of drawn to it during that time. And now, especially in my internship, I'm working with a startup close by. And one of our fellow adjunct professors, I believe is the term, her name is Erin Brooks, and she has a startup called DevZio. And essentially, without revealing too much, she's attempting to make easier and more smooth the interactions between engineering companies, software companies that are building stuff, and businesses that are trying to build things for a market. And really, like as I just mentioned, with the prototyping and wasting money on certain things, being able to avoid that is crucial in today's day and age, where there's so many different softwares, things sink or swim so like profoundly, depending on if you can hit this match. And making sure that you're integrating all of this. Yes, software companies are great. You can give them a very specific framework and they'll build what you want. But just like computers, they'll do exactly what you tell them. There's not a lot of, I don't want to say critical thinking, because there's a lot of work that goes into software, but especially when you're in that work and in that job, you just want to do what you're told and get it done and make it work. There's not really much room for creativity outside of the guidelines that you've been given. So Aaron is hoping to facilitate this and make sure that we don't fall into these problems, making sure we can understand software from the bottom up, make sure what features we're addressing for specific customers, how to test them and make sure these customers are getting the benefits we're trying to design for, that whole cascade from beginning to end. And so that's a little bit of the work that I've been doing. And in a way, because this tool or these kind of campaigns are meant to be universal for all sorts of software and projects, I am learning software in a general sense as well. I came from a very specific niche perspective with application in biology and bioinformatics. And now with some of the clients that she has, I'm seeing, okay, this is how software actually thrives in the real world, not just bioinformatics, not just social media, not just cool AI, but there are a lot of other ways that you can solve problems using software that isn't just, oh, big buzzwords, maybe it's not as sexy of a problem, but getting an elegant solution is sexy to me. So I'm loving it.
That's excellent. And it's such a great, I think, spin-off from what you did in the first half of your capstone. Would you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah.
It's a nice progression from where you've been,
No,
like
of course.
science and bioinformatics, and then
Yeah.
leading up to this position with Aaron. Yeah.
So the first half of my capstone was more of a personal project. It wasn't from an internship or outside company. But there was a fellow student who was a PhD candidate in Georgia who was studying epidemiology, social and psychological factors of certain cancers and disease. Um, I can't think of the word right now, but disease uptake, I guess you could say. More specifically, in his case, was cancers. And for his research, he was mostly focused on melanoma and the specifically melanoma because of how rapid it is, how varied it can be to detect, how severe it can be once it does start going. Once it gets past that stage two, stage three, it is very quick. And even just the danger in it, even though melanoma itself is very dangerous, it has a lot of capabilities to metastasize more so than other cancers. So my project partner was really focused on developing an AI tool to hopefully help screen for them. Not detect melanoma specifically, but you as a person, help you to understand your susceptibilities to these kinds of diseases. So again, in that this problem solving way, medicine in general tends to focus a lot on the cure, which I guess we could say is a solution. But through my research, bioinformatics, genetics, as well as just in terms of treatments in general, you want to try to avoid causing the disease as much as possible before trying to cure it, you know? So in that way, using this design thinking, it seems like, oh, it's an obvious solution. Instead of trying to diagnose it, try to prevent it and try to realize what factors you may have as a person that cause increase of that susceptibility. So that was the first half of our capstone and what we did. So understanding exactly how the data would flow, what kind of metrics we would pull, what even matters in this way, all of those kinds of decisions come from your confidence to go out and do the research. And this goes back to what Allison was saying in the beginning. Yes, I have a little bit of understanding of software and AI, and I've worked and I understand a lot in terms of kind of products are coming out. But when it comes to designing one and being confident enough to go out and do the research and be able to sift through what is good, what is bad info, and everything nowadays seems to be that everyone wants to be that center of information that yes, come here, we know what we're doing, this is the framework, this is everything. But it's a little bit more convoluted and complex than that. But this was part of that. This is that first step, especially when it comes to medicine and AI. Doing a lot of research was very crucial with that. You don't want to say the wrong thing and then be called out for it. That really, really hits your ethos and doesn't make you look very good. So that is a very big
Yeah,
part.
that can be very dangerous in
Yeah,
a space where people's lives are on the line. That's for certain. But goodness knows that humans are really good at defeating cancer when it's early stage, but when it gets to be late stage, we're not so great yet.
precisely.
Uh, okay, so tell me about a really meaningful experience that you've had in the MPI program.
I think as much as EIA was very, very formative, and I love to go. I would have loved to have gone before I started the program. I think my first foray into 590 was probably one of the most formative parts of my program in general. And just for a little bit of context, as they'll probably go into later, 590 is one of the first really cross-disciplinary applied projects that you're put into. After your intro classes of engineering, arts, and business, you're put onto a cross-disciplinary project with people who ideally think a little bit differently than you, whether that is industry background or that's a little bit more nuanced in terms of quick start, research, all that stuff. We're trying to mix types of thinking, and we put you on a project that is one of Da Vinci's partners or VCU's corporate sponsors or anyone that wants to be involved. And you try to solve the problem by going through design thinking, user centered design, making sure you're doing the proper customer discovery, you're making sure you know what assumptions you're even making, and you have a real client who you're trying to make happy at the end of the day, which is a pretty big dynamic opposed to just class projects. So that all in itself was definitely formative to go through, let alone how difficult I'll say our project was in the sense that again, even though I am data minded, one of the big things of Da Vinci is that cross disciplinarity. So even if we, or when I say we, I say I will try to understand something when it comes to data, even I may get a small grasp of it, trying to explain that to someone who has no grasp on technology or data is a big difficulty. But you're all working on the same team and you're trying to make the same client happy. So it's sink or swim in terms of understanding. You have to do the best you can to get different people to understand different points. And I think the most formative thing is that while a lot of people can say the same words, you may understand different things completely. And I think that is the biggest difficulty, communication. And being able to understand when things are taken in a different way versus when things are taken in the way you had intended them to be. And that nebulousness again is a big part of it. But that is not going to change. But being exposed to that early, I think really made me aware of the kind of things that you would probably face going on in life. And this comes up over and over, whether it's people in your group, talking to a higher up who isn't as involved in the project, talking to customers who are trying to understand exactly what you're doing with that nuance. If they're trying to give you good feedback, they may be not in the right spot with answer giving. So bringing them into the right spot, that's another way of communication. And when it comes to user-centered design and human-centered design, you're always talking to people. So learning those skills are definitely the biggest thing for me. So again, that would definitely be the answer for me.
I definitely saw a lot of growth in your team in terms of communication, because you had a really messy problem in that course, and to get to the point where you could tell it as a clear narrative and all the solutions and research that you had done, definitely saw that. And that's a big part of that course, right? Learning to have that open communication and to be able to work intimately with people who come from very different backgrounds and think differently than you. Excellent. Thank you for that. Talk a little bit about your perspective on the culture of Da Vinci amongst the students, amongst faculty and staff, the whole big Da Vinci family.
Yeah. Apart from being diverse, being open to new thought and ideas, I definitely think the biggest thing about culture that I'm definitely trying to build that muscle for is build to think and just do it, you know? A lot of the times I get stuck in ideation or research or kind of coming up with the plan. But one thing I love about Da Vinci is that you see a lot of people doing things. And that kind of lights a fire under your butt as well to make you feel like, oh, not to pull other people down or up or anything, but it's like if other people can do it, I should be able to do it as well. I know that these people started the same time as I did, have generally the same amount of knowledge when it comes to innovation that I do. So again, it comes to that confidence and building that muscle of just trying it, even if you don't have a full view on what space you're working in. Building to think is huge. Building a little bit, starting, not keeping everything in your head, whether it's a visual, whether it's a paper prototype or anything, getting something out is definitely one of the big things about the culture that I think is important to take. But yeah.
That warms my heart so much, Michael.
Good answer.
That for that to be your takeaway so far, the program is huge. That building to think, it's hard for us to get past our initial there's one solution for one problem, right? So we have to find the best solution, and that's the one we build, and that's what we're comfortable showing to people, versus putting something out there that is relatively rudimentary to just get feedback from users so that we can better understand how they think and feel about a problem. Exactly. And then we build something that's better, because ultimately if we're just using our own experiences or just the experiences of the people around us to build and release a product, we don't actually have any clue as to whether or not it's solving for a real human need with an actual market, so enough people that we can make this thing successful and get it out there. And just, we have to connect to people. So yeah, building to learn, communication, like you're hitting all my high notes. I'm so proud right now.
I'm going to do a lot of tabling, and I've been talking to a lot of people about this program, so I'm hoping I'm doing it justice.
Thank you for that. I think you are. I think you are giving really specific items that provide context to something that's relatively different than most master's programs that you're going to see out in the world. So yeah, that's amazing. Oh my gosh, we're doing it. We're getting through. It's just so much fun. Sometimes students need to go out into the world before they really grasp that build to learn and how life-changing that can be. Because in K-12 in college, we are commonly taught, like, okay, we're given a problem, let's plan and research until we find that one right solution and then execute one right solution. But just like we do the marshmallow challenge in 590, that puts that marshmallow on top of the tower, and you're probably going to have an uh-oh moment where you build it. If you haven't seen the Marshmallow Challenge, there's a quick 6-minute TED Talk on it. You'll understand. That'll give you context of what I'm talking about. But when we build up with this expectation and then put it on an unsturdy surface, at the top, this one solution, it tends to come falling down. And if we're focused on creating a really strong, stable base to that product, we tend to get a little bit more buy-in from people, and we're actually solving for pain points that humans have. Sorry, I used an example that I'm pretty certain is old enough that not everybody's gonna understand what that is. So yes, check out the TED Talk and the Marshmallow Challenge. What's been your favorite part of the MPI? People? Challenges?
It's definitely a big part of it, 100%. Even another part of coming out of undergrad is the reality that adult relationships and friendships are a little bit more difficult to come across. And I think having another consistent space where people are similarly thinking and have a physical space to come and do things like regularly, I think is a huge part of it. But more specifically, when it comes to favorite parts, in general, it's definitely the confidence again that you get to apply your knowledge that you do have, do the research, and come up with some form of design for something you may not have been confident in before. Or even if you don't know anything, the confidence to try to scaffold your knowledge somehow. Go out and learn new skills that, while you may not have had before, you may be able to kind of iterate towards from skills you do have and work on something which you never would have thought of initially. Going back to that 590 example, I never would have thought I would have worked on a construction project, you know what I mean? But even in applying that and trying to bend the skills I do have, whether it's biology, whether it's seeing systems in a certain way and applying that to dashboarding, for example, while it is a little bit out of left field, biological systems versus data systems, they kind of do function the same way fundamentally, but it's going out and bridging that connection muscle, I think has been the favorite part of my MPI program. Hanging out with people, seeing other people do that as well, seeing how they've grown, and figuring out that yes, our skills and our interests make us who we are, but there's a piece inside of that as well that makes us even more who we are, how we chase those kind of interests, how we chase those hobbies, how we manifest things in general into our daily worlds. And that's what I like to see a lot. I don't feel that the people that I meet are two-faced or two-sided. What you see is what you get with these people. It's very authentic.
Excellent. Thank you. That's a high compliment to Paige there too. Anybody who's here, would you like to ask Michael any questions, or Mary Chris, if you have any follow-up questions for Michael? I don't want to take too much of his time, but we have him here in case you're curious.
Yeah, and again, I don't know, I don't want to overstep, but if anyone wants to ask me specifically any questions through email, or if it comes to the healthcare program specifically, feel free to reach out to me. I'm happy to speak on whatever I can.
Yeah. Hey, Michael, I might invite you. We have a Q&A session for our healthcare innovation certificate coming up. I'll have to look up the date. It's not hitting my brain right off the top of my head, but it's just a Q&A session, so we're not going through all the details. But I think you would be an excellent person to join Ingrid and I to help answer some questions from the student perspective.
I'd love to.
Excellent. All right. Well, thank you so much, Michael. I really appreciate you being here. Yeah, if you're comfortable sharing contact information, we can help put it out there for this particular info session if students want to reach out.
I'll put it in the chat for now, and then you can stick it in wherever as well.
Yeah. And just one more call for those that are attending. We are going to let Michael go because he does not need to sit through all the details about the program that he's already in and about to graduate from. But if you do have a question for him, feel free to unmute and ask that. Great, Rachel, thanks. I see your hand.
Yeah, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. I had a question for Michael just to get your input. I had somebody from the MPI program. I was talking to her about me thinking about going and whatnot. And what I was really worried about is that I have all these different interests and I can't at this point in time I can't settle down on one. And
Yeah.
she kind of told me it might be best for you to take some time, work full time, and get to know your real life experience and then come back to the MPI program, and you might be able to get more things out of it that way. Or is there something that you would argue with that, or try to help me like feel
Mhm.
more confident about going like when I graduate, like after the senior year at the age of 22, when I might not know very much.
Yeah. Just as a preface as well, funnily enough, I was pretty much in your exact same position a year ago. When I was talking to Allison over that summer after I graduated in May, I was like, I love medicine. I love doing all of this, but whether it's the feasibility of applying to med school or committing to that, regardless of what the actual reason was, I was fearful of it. And just to address a little bit as well, whether it is you working or an internship or even a personal project, I think applying the knowledge or interests that you have is more important rather than it being an official job or anything like that. It can be anything from creating a fun little video game yourself to prototyping a whole business from beginning to end with what skills you do know and have. But I think that whether you do have something going into it or not, you will get opportunities to apply your knowledge. And I think that is the core of getting stuff out of the MPI, whether it's applying your knowledge before or after, having a base and understanding, I don't want to say shortcomings, but where you feel your fears are, or weaknesses are. One thing for me was that, again, even though I had so much, I had done projects in bioinformatics, I had done biological, chemical, and research uh, in undergrad, like traditional experimenting and like actual research work. I felt that going through this program helped me understand where I took too much instruction and didn't have enough in terms of my own feelings of application of knowledge. So again, whether that's a job you're working at, whether that's you creating, uh, like I said, a video game and going through those nuts and bolts, what works and what doesn't, just any process of that sort will give you a base to go into the MPI. For me specifically, when it comes to different hobbies, I didn't, even though my education is very STEM minded, I love music, I love art, I love sports, and like I just mentioned, I love video games too. And even though my education is very STEM minded, realistically, job wise, I didn't know if I wanted to see myself through in that way. So coming through this program, trying projects, messing things up in some ways, talking to more people, seeing in reality what it's like getting a job. And what I mean by that is that even now in this semester, talking to April Palmer, one of the brilliant teachers here as well, she's helping us understand that a lot of job listings are kind of, I'm going to use the term BS here, but uh, job titles are very arbitrary from company to company. They'll put sometimes an arbitrary amount of experience in terms of years and such on there. And it's really up to you and how you can talk through in this sort of responsibility field of, okay, I don't have 7 years of Scrum and Agile experience, but I've worked on my own business for this long using Scrum and Agile principles. Or I haven't built my own video game, but I've been to game jams and I've done this, and this. So again, it's that scaffolded knowledge of knowing, okay, it's not exactly the same, but how can I still demonstrate that I do know what I'm doing in some ways? I know that was very long-winded, but I hope that does help in some ways. It's kind of difficult to nail down exactly because everyone's path through this program is very unique. It is very dependent on who you are as a person, your strengths and shortcomings. So yeah, I'm sorry. I hope that helped.
No, you're all good. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
And Rachel, we have a lot of students who are going through the program part-time, who work full-time, people who work full-time who are going through the program full-time, people with years and years of experience, and people who are 22 years old coming right out of undergrad. That is part of the diversity and part of the magic in the program is there's never been an issue that we've had from having 22-year-olds in the classroom and having 58-year-olds in the classroom. Or, so just there's a large span of people who are coming in here. We all have something different to teach each other and different things to learn. And that tends to be the mindset of people who come through the program and is part of that success. So it just depends on kind of where you want to get this learning, right? Like where, just building upon your own problem solving skills that you already have. We're not going anywhere. So we can talk to you all the way through it. But if you would like to meet some other students who are either currently in the program or alumni who have various different degrees of work experience to talk to you just then one-on-one about the program, happy to make those introductions.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, excellent. All right, we got a question in the chat. Michael, can you see it? I can read it to you.
Yes, I can.
Okay.
Introduced to design thinking about 10 years ago. I'm very interested on how I could couple this with health equity. What would you recommend? Uh, I'm not too familiar specifically with the nuances of health equity exactly, but even just when it comes to equity in general, one of the big things is understanding, I'm going to use the term plights here, but problems, differences between demographics or people, and understanding how can we create a platform or a tool or whatever campaign you're trying to start that gives a level playing field for everyone. And that comes from understanding the different levels of whether it's privilege or not privilege that these people are experiencing. And that comes with true customer discovery. And in my opinion, one of the best things about design thinking is, again, getting better at asking questions. And I still fall victim to bias all the time, leading questions and that sort. But when you do have that true open space and someone feels safe to tell you their true problems, they don't feel judged, or they don't feel like, if, for example, I was on a banking project for a little bit and we were thinking about how to increase people who are unbanked to use banking apps of some sort. And the big thing is that a lot of the unbanked do not trust financial institutions, and that may come with some shame. That may come from being bitten before from a financial institution, whether it's loans or all sorts of things you can think of when it comes to that. But shame comes along with that, and you may not realize it, but people don't like answering questions in that way because it reflects on them poorly. And that's bad when it comes to product discovery, because you want truthful answers. But again, like I said, in a nuanced way, I don't know exactly how to address health equity, but I think learning that would be very valuable when it comes to a very multifaceted problem, like when it comes to healthcare being locked in a certain way, insurance being a part of that as well. I'm sure accessibility and transportation is a big part of that. And there's so many layers to a healthcare issue, but I hope that does lead in the right direction. A lot of the healthcare stuff we do specifically has to do with clinic creation, multidisciplinary symptom management, IHI model improvement, really understanding a hospital in terms of the business, so that if you do want to do something like a health equity campaign, how do you convince the business people in hospitals to give you money or to allow for this to happen and see a benefit in that way? That's my scattershot answer for you. I hope it does address that in some way.
Yeah, have you been involved with our new, don't we have a new school or college of public health? We have a new school of public health, right? Are you already involved in that? No, not yet. Okay, I haven't been able to meet their leadership yet. I'm certain that our executive director has in some way. But we do a lot of trainings in design thinking and Lego serious play and that kind of stuff in our health system. I think at this point we have thousands of people who have been trained over there. And so wondering, where is the partnership, and is there a way that we can better mesh those skill sets or that classes from public health with the product innovation side? So we're getting this amalgamation of things similar to what we do in our healthcare innovation certificate, but like Michael said, is much more focused on how do you actually get things implemented within a health system, which is a big hurdle for anything that has to do with innovation in the health system. But I do know I have had some experience with projects in health equity and how challenging it is to use methods like human-centered design when you may not have trust within that community and may not be able to get the data that you actually need, or have the data that you're putting out there, the information you're putting out there, be absorbed or be believed by specific communities. I know in Richmond we have quite the spread of health equity issues in Richmond and the surrounding areas. There's been a lot of studies that have been done on that. We do have I do have some contacts in terms of people who are working on health equity studies and attempting to reduce cancer and diabetes rates and those kinds of things. Happy to make introductions if you're interested in having more individual conversations. I don't know your background, given your literal Zoom background right now. I'm guessing you're already involved.
So from a perspective, I'm actually a system engineer in quality and safety in the health system. However, like Michael, I have a very wide breadth of background. I've worked now in telephony. I've also worked in financial services. I have now healthcare. Um, I have a I have been a certified project manager, process manager, Six Sigma certified. Almost 10 years ago, when I used to work for one of the financial services people, I actually, one of my financial services teams, um, when they first brought design thinking to the community and they did the big community teaching, um, my the company, the organization I work for actually paid for me to come out and become part of the community teaching. So I've done that and it just stuck. I think bringing humanities into the solution is the way we need to go, so that people get the actual health care that they deserve. So yeah, and I didn't even talk about my education. I'm a chemist. I have worked as a certified medical technologist. So yeah, I've worked in rubber
Don't
chemistry. Yeah, my specialty was analytical chemistry. So yeah, I have an MBA because somebody told me years ago, as I'm aging myself now, years ago, I went to be a pharmaceutical sales rep, and they told me, "Oh, you're a great scientist. However, you don't have a business background." So I decided that I was going to get my MBA, so nobody will ever tell me that again. So yeah.
I also
Um,
have that attitude. Tell me I can't.
yes, thank you. So now I'm trying to evolve, um, and figure out how do I take all of the skills that I have, to solution and facilitate solutioning and impact the community in a positive manner through healthcare. So,
Yeah. I have we definitely have some students that I think you would be interested in speaking with. I want to talk with you more, definitely.
okay,
Just to hear more about your background. This is and just what you want to accomplish going forward to make sure that we would be a good fit. Rather if you took your time to apply and go through interviews and those kinds of things to only find out that this wasn't the best fit. We want that for every student, right? So I want to make sure that we can uphold all the things that you were trying to do.
okay. That sounds like a plan.
Want to honor our students in the best ways that we can. Make sure that the degree is valuable to them, not just getting it because someone tells you that you can't do something because you don't have it.
Exactly. So to be frank, when I saw it, I was like, oh, let me register, so I could be introduced to what it is here. An MPI is here. But I can tell you one of my thoughts has been like, hey, can I create my own doctoral program by combining some of these things together? So I'm really looking for somebody to help me sort of squash these things together and say, oh, how do I do this?
Let's
So
talk about that. The
yeah,
the MATX program here at VCU kind of allows for a few things to overlap and squish together. And I've had one other person come forward asking about forming a specialized PhD using some of the courses coming out of Da Vinci. So I think that would be a great follow-up meeting for us to have and figure out what that looks like. Maybe it is MPI, maybe it's something else. Maybe we can create something new, which we're totally open to.
that's about innovation.
Why not?
Oh, well, thank you. Yes, I look forward to having that conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. Our email addresses and stuff, I'll pop mine in the chat too,
Okay.
just so you have it. And for those of you who are tuning into the recording, we will have our general VCU email address at the end, but those emails do get checked by a person and they do get sent to us. So in case you can't see my email address in the chat, you will be able to reach out to us. All right. Any other questions for Michael? No?
Good luck, Michael. It sounds like you're
Thank
going to
you.
have
Thank you
some
so much.
fun.
Figuring it out as we go, as product is in general. Everything's iteration, right? But thank you guys so much for having me. Hopefully we'll see you
Yes.
more around.
Thank you for your time, Michael. Thank you for your insight. Really appreciate it. Great to see you.
Enjoy the rest of your week, everyone. Take care.
Yep. See ya. All right, Mary Chris, you want to get us moving through all the details?
Yes, let me just share my screen here. All right. Hopefully that is showing up for everybody. I feel like our conversation with Michael did a really great job of sort of encapsulating who we are at the Da Vinci Center. So we won't spend a ton of time on this, but we do really try to live in the middle of this Venn diagram here and combine the academic, the experiential, and the experimental. As Allison mentioned, we don't take tests. We're very hands-on. We want students to jump in and learn by doing. So you can see here we have a series of design aspirations that I'm not going to go through one by one, but really like to have these here. And again, our conversation with Michael covered a lot of these, but empowering innovative ideas, being student focused and leading with empathy, embracing failure, embracing that things don't always go right. And we really want to be here as a place to help students test out ideas and learn what they like and don't like, and what they want to move forward with. And so it's a very safe space where, a project not going the way you thought it would is not a failing grade in a course. It is, how you reflect on that and learn from it and how you move forward. And so this is just a kind of quick visual snapshot of who we are as a center and a lot of the things that we embody. And again, on that side of being student focused, I think our students do the best job of sort of talking about that. So we won't spend a ton of time there. Also just want to mention that we do have an amazing experience for students in our Shift Retail Lab, which is a space that is located on Broad Street, right across from the Siegel Center. We've been open 2 years, but we recently won the Fast Company's Innovation by Design Award in the learning category. And this is truly a lab for entrepreneurs to test out ideas all the way from I woke up in the middle of the night with an idea to I already have a product or I'm selling or a business or a service that I'm ready to sell. What I love about this project is it's very student driven. We have graduate assistants like Michael working with other students in the lab. We have students from mass communications helping other students with advertising campaigns and designing materials for marketing. And so it's constantly evolving. It is in that experimental part of our 3 concentric circles, constantly evolving. But this is something that is available to Masters of Product Innovation students. It's also available to undergrad students and alumni and community members. But we like to highlight it here because this is a space that in your time at Da Vinci, you'll be using quite a bit in your classes, and that you'll have access to as well. So and we just are excited about our award and want to make sure that we're celebrating that and sharing that.
Yeah, I mean, much like a biology lab or a chemistry lab, given the scientists we've had here today, it's that for entrepreneurs. And what makes it unique? There are a lot of organizations, a lot of universities that have student storefronts where students can sell their products. Ours can, and you maintain 100% of what you earn. We don't touch the money. We're just here to help provide prototyping budgets and the skills and those kinds of things to go with it. But it is unique because it is meant to get user feedback on those ideas. It is meant to just fundamentally support design thinking and the ideals that we're putting forward in the program. So yeah, I'll get in and talk a little bit about our academic programs. We're never quite sure how much research people have done before joining into a info session. But I can give the brief of our undergraduate programs, given this one is master's focused, but it's important to talk about because it is the foundation of what we do at Da Vinci. So we do have undergraduate certificates in product innovation and venture creation. And the biggest difference between those two is that on the product innovation side, we're bringing in the problems for students to solve. And on the venture creation side, we're helping students solve their own problems. And that's developing products and businesses and services. They've identified a problem in the world, and we help provide those skills and give them access to things like Shift Retail Lab to be able to put their businesses out there. We also teach courses in human-centered design and or design thinking, commonly used interchangeably, and that is the foundation of everything we do. So if you take these 3 things together and kind of amp it up a bit, that's where we get our Master of Product Innovation program. So based in arts and business and engineering, in entrepreneurship as well as entrepreneurship. So depending on if you want to work for somebody else or you want to work for yourself, those all come together in that primary graduate program that we run. And then additionally, we do have the Certificate of Healthcare Innovation that we've talked about a few times in this info session, which we have a little bit more detail on the next slide. So looking at the just the overall high level of our graduate programs. The MPI is 13 to 18 months. It can be up to 2 years. We do have students who go part-time, take about 6 credits a semester while they're working full-time or, supporting their families, those kinds of things. It is cross-disciplinary, so you do go through courses in design and business and technology and engineering. It is very much advanced product innovation. So the project that Michael spoke about earlier in the 590 class, I actually co-teach that with Aaron Brooks, who he's doing his internship with. And we are looking for some really messy problems from our community to be able to solve. I'll give some examples of that later when we talk about our classes, but it really is starting in that first intense fall semester to get you going on how to solve these messy problems. And then in the spring semester, moving you into more of the entrepreneurship and developing your own ideas and trying to work those towards launch or commercialization. And then the graduate certificate in healthcare innovation, this one is just 12 credit hours. So as opposed to 30 to 33 credits in the MPI, this one's 12. And it's a direct partnership with VCU Nursing. Michael did a great job of kind of explaining what the basis is there, but it's really to match people who are coming from healthcare, who have identified problems in the healthcare system, but may not know much about the product development or entrepreneurship process. So we can give them context there, have the starting points and the resources to be able to start the process of launching a product. Or if you already have a product in mind, you can accompany our MPIs through one of the capstone classes, and we can help you work it towards commercialization. But it is also cross-disciplinary. And well, I guess the other side too, where you have people in product who are really interested in healthcare, who don't understand how to implement something or really recognize real problems or a market within the healthcare space. So it's getting that basic understanding. And again, we're going to meet you where you are and help you get to the next steps in the certificate or in the degree. And then there's a really cool thing where people who decide to do both of these things, you don't actually end up paying any additional cost for the certificate because the 6 credits of nursing courses fit nicely into your requirements for the MPI, which we have quite a few students do, Michael being one of them, and a few others in his cohort. All right, so looking at the initial, just how the program was designed, full-time summer start for the MPI. I'm going to walk through some of these classes. I know we don't have names up there. We tend to focus probably a bit too much on the numbers for the classes. So this slide's not giving you a lot of information, but I'm going to fill in the gaps here. So looking at summer of 24, if you are a person who's interested in starting in the summer, you have a few different options of courses you could take. Generally, our students will start with those INO 691s or various electives that we offer. These may be things on intellectual property protection, user research, UX UI. For those who don't know what that term is, user experience, user interface. So different ways of engaging with users, understanding how to protect something that you create. We have lots of different varieties that we offer throughout the year, but we usually offer some key fundamental, very fast. They're usually like 1 to 3 week courses, 1 credit at a time. So that way you can pick and choose your own adventure, right? You can choose which courses. So you may have like 5 or 6 1 credit courses to choose from, and you may choose 3 of them to fulfill an elective. The 600 or 610, 600 is our European Innovation Academy experience. So we take students to Portugal for 3 weeks, and they go from idea to pitching to investors in just that short period of time. They're mentored by people from Google and Twitter and Ducati, and just basically name a big organization, and they likely have someone there representing. Lots of nonprofits and others as well who are there. But going through the breadth of knowledge of building a venture, developing a product, understanding marketing. We can't go in depth in just 3 weeks, but we can get that breadth of knowledge and see what the whole process looks like in a very short period of time. They've been doing this for a very long time, and I believe they have over 100,000 people who have gone through this process, and it's one heck of a network. And you have to go through it to gain access to that network. But it's wonderful to know that you can reach out to that many people at once in case you need a full stack developer or you need someone to join your team coming from a different background. You know they've been through it, and they've gone through this really challenging experience. Due to COVID, when we couldn't travel abroad, we did introduce a second class, INO 610, which is more of the basic design principles. Let's see, it's change management. It's really in depth in design thinking and how that works in industry. And so that's beneficial. That class is open to every graduate and professional level student, even some non-degree seeking students who already have undergraduate degrees. That you get internationally recognized certifications in that course, but we wanted to make sure we provided some real value, that students could get, even if they couldn't travel abroad to Portugal for 3 weeks. A lot of our students will work full time, and that can be a real challenge to be off work for that long. Moving into the fall semester, this is where we're really focusing on industry. So summer is preparation, giving you the breadth of knowledge, giving you some start off skills. Fall, we're breaking in more into industry. We'll bring in guest speakers. We're talking about how innovation and product development works in business, in large corporations and startups, all over the place. So 501 is that arts and design course, 502 is the business course, 503 is the technology and engineering course. It's important to note that if you come from one of those backgrounds, you are not required to take the class that aligns with your background. But we do encourage it because we are teaching in a very different way, and we are teaching specifically to innovation. But if you come from an arts background, it might not make sense for you to go to through the arts course, but you can always attend for the first week and see if it's for you. And if not, withdraw from the class and move forward. And then there's the Inno 590 that I co-teach. That is the project class where we are utilizing the skills that we're learning in the other 3 courses and bringing them in and working on one of those big projects. We have, just as quick examples of things that we're working on in this class this semester. We're working with Veteran Affairs to help bilateral amputees, the aging population of bilateral amputees, our veterans, more easily move from their vehicle, their car, truck, or van, into their second mode of transportation. So motorized vehicle or wheelchair or other things to move safely. Younger patients tend to be able to swing themselves over fairly quickly, but what is a better solution than what already exists on the market to safely help someone have that autonomy and be able to move more easily from one mode of transportation to another? We're doing a little bit of small business development for Brown Ballerinas for Change. We're working on a facial dressing for people who go through facial surgeries to prevent hematoma or necrosis of the skin. Oh my goodness. Looking at how to get rid of bio waste when we create solar farms. There's all kinds of stuff that we work on in this course, and our students get to dive into with very little expertise, but they sure becomes easy to talk about by the end of the semester. But that's really focusing on industry, focusing on how innovation is done outside of entrepreneurship. Then in the spring, the 651, that is the first half of the capstone, where students bring in their own ideas. They partner with someone, another student in the program or someone from outside the program. They can borrow technology from our tech transfer office, but the whole idea is to go from an idea and moving it towards launch or commercialization. Sometimes launch doesn't mean commercialization because you might not be making money from it, but there is always a business model, a business plan that has to go with it, so we understand how to build and sustain something, even if it is it's being put out there for the nonprofit space. It's still probably going to need some money to run. So we go through all of that. So you're taking the skills you're learning earlier on and you're putting them in your own idea and doing the very hard work of what it takes to go from idea to validation to, really understanding those user pain points and getting a product out there. And then going into 652, in the summer, you can do this in the summer or the fall. Some students take the summer, their second summer off and finish in the fall. But 652 is the second half of the capstone, and that can be completed in usually one of 3 ways. And that is either continuing your product or business from 651, doing an internship in product, or having a job specifically. We call it an internship, but you can have full-time employment in the product space, and that can apply as well. Or doing a traditional master's thesis where you have a committee and you're writing a thesis behind that. Very few students take the thesis side because we are more of an applied program. But the first 2, in terms of continuing your business or doing an internship, those are very easily combined into this course. In the end, you're doing a lot of reflection work and sharing with other students in the class. Those are who are in different tracks. Those are in the same track as you, to help understand how you can manage up if you're in an internship or a job? How do you win that internship at the end? How do you take the skills you've learned in the program and really figure out ways to implement them into those areas that you're working on for 652? So it's very much a conversational, let's find this information to help deepen the learning there as we're applying it and to finish out the master's program. But yeah, there are tons of electives that we have. I think this spring we're offering things. Mary Chris teaches a class on how to design your life. So using design thinking and thinking about your near future, what you might want to do with your life. We have personal implications of ChatGPT. So if you want to learn how to use ChatGPT to make your life easier, we got a class on that. How to build a brand narrative, how to fund your startup. Lots and lots of different, heck, even energy storage innovation is something that we're offering in the spring. So a lot of those classes, a lot of our electives are open to all graduate and professional students at the university, and you can find them on our website under the programs tab. There's just a list for classes. They're not all up for spring yet. We'll get those launched hopefully by next week on the website. But some really interesting areas that you can dive into. And these are all coming from our students who are saying, hey, I have identified this gap, or here's the subject I'm interested in. So we go find an expert and bring them in to potentially teach and see how it goes and see if students are finding value in that. Feedback from our students is probably one of the most important things that we value in this program. But we can walk through the fall start too. Full-time fall start, Mary Chris. No, flip over.
Yes, and I was just going to say that's kind of why we have this laid out the way we do. So we're talking in numbers, but these slides are also just helpful to show you that you can move through with a summer start or a fall start. We're really focused on that summer start right now because our upcoming application deadline of December 15th is for that summer program. But it's absolutely fine if for whatever reason summer doesn't work. I know a number of our students who decide to come straight out of undergrad and graduate in May and are thinking about coming into the MPI. That's just a lot, like to move immediately from undergrad courses that end in beginning of May to grad courses that start at the end of May. So sometimes fall looks better, and some of our returning students have plans over the summer that just don't work with this. So if you were to start in the fall, essentially that summer with the trip to the European Innovation Academy or EIA or the 610 course just kind of flips over to the next summer and you take it more in the middle of your program. That's actually, or more toward the end. That's actually what Michael did. So that's what he was referencing when he talked about EIA and when he went. There's also some nuance to this. And so as Allison mentioned, we will have an email up at the end. I'm always happy to kind of look at this with students and kind of help them figure out, for example, if you don't want to travel to EIA, you can actually start in the fall and finish our program in the summer. You cannot do the NO 600, which is that trip to Portugal, and your final NO 652 in the same semester because the 600 is just too intense for the 3 weeks that you're in Portugal, but you can do the 610 course at the same time as that capstone. So there's nuance to this, but just, know that if you're okay with not going to Portugal, you can finish the program, start in the fall and finish in the summer. And then speaking of kind of nuance, we do have an example that I like to give to students about part-time versus full-time start. And this is just what it could look like if you were to go through our program part-time. Some of this really can't be moved because, as you noticed on the other slides, those NO 500, that 500 series of courses are only offered in the fall. And so you have to split those up over 2 falls, and those need to be done before you can take the 651 and 652. But where the electives land in a part-time schedule is up to you, as there's a lot of kind of nuance to ways that we can move those elective credits around. We recommend, if you're thinking about part-time, going at a 6 credit a semester pace with this. And that's just, again, mostly because of that 2 things. One, those fall courses, if you tried to split them up to 1 class a semester, it's going to take you 4 years to get that done because you have to wait for 4 falls to cycle through. And then also you're just going to get to a point in those final capstone courses where they're 6 credit classes. And so it just kind of makes sense to move through at a 6 credit a semester rate generally as a part-time student when you're going through. We do have students ask all the time if there's, a benefit to going full or part-time. we've had students do it both ways. We've had students who work full-time, attend part-time. We've had students who, work full-time and attend full-time. We've had students who are full-time students and, attending full-time. There's a million different ways to structure it, and it just depends on who you are as a person. One very cool thing about our program is because it's an accelerated full-time program, if you are accomplishing it on a part-time basis, it just takes 2 years. And a standard 60 credit master's is going to take 4 years part-time. So that is just kind of a nice thing about it being an accelerated program. But we have absolutely had students who came part-time and really enjoyed being part of 2 different cohorts of full-time students because it just expanded the network of people that they met. We are getting to a point where we have a good handful of students who are part-time. So you're also going to be moving alongside other part-time students that you'll just get to spend a little bit more time with. So there's not a right or wrong way to do this. And even if you truly wanted to just take, part-time and stretch it out over 4 years, you could. We just kind of caution about the one class a semester because it's just going to take a really long time to get through the material. But that is one way that sequence of part-time can look like, again, with the flexibility around the electives. Allison, do you want to talk through some of these perks? And you're muted.
It had to happen to somebody. Of course, it was me. Like that hasn't ended in all the Zoom experiences that we've had. But this is my favorite part to talk about. It's just a lot of the resources that are above and beyond the program that we're offering. So the use of Shift Retail Lab, we have had MPI students turn this into a after-hours music venue in support of their capstone. I helped construct completely shift the space into a Iranian cultural festival to help dispel a lot of the ways that Iran is represented in the media. We had an Iranian American student who really wanted to show people the beauty of Iran. And so we had food and music and wine and people who were a living library, and we sectioned off an entire space and built this bridge. It was quite an event, and it was very successful, but these are takeovers that happen in Shift Retail Lab. So it's more than just displaying a project, but it's a space that students can utilize to test big ideas. And there's just always time and space available for that. We also offer $1,000 in capstone funding to our students. So if you need a specific kind of software or hardware, or you need to be able to travel somewhere to go do some particular research, that $1,000 is provided to each and every student who comes through the program to be able to help make their experience a little easier. Right? Because being in grad school is usually not an inexpensive thing, and we want to make sure that we're lifting as many barriers as we can. The one-on-one mentoring and network access, this came from feedback from our students. They wanted more insight and time with our faculty and staff. And so we have a required mentoring program at this point that helps students figure out what they want to do in the future. If they don't know what they want to do, be like, hey, pick some things. You want to look up a UX UI researcher, and I'll make an introduction to them. Have some coffee with them for 20 minutes and ask them about what they do. And maybe you'll gain some better insight into what you might want to do next, right? Because it doesn't have to be the career forever. It's what you want to do next. And to gain that experience. But I spend a good portion of my week reaching out to people that I don't even know on LinkedIn, just to see if we can get some, give them context for Da Vinci and get them to engage with our students and help them answer some of those questions they have for themselves. We do offer fellowships, scholarships, graduate assistant support. It kind of varies depending on our donors and who is giving for each year. This year, we were able to issue $50,000 in fellowships, so $10,000 fellowships for 5 students to do deep dives into individual studies. The year before, we did it for $70,000. Michael is one of those students. His fellowship is a deep dive into esports. So really looking at that video game interest that he has and building a network around that. So deep dive into a subject, building a network. They're relatively simple. We don't put a ton of parameters on those. We just want to give students the ability to have a little bit more freedom, a little bit more financial freedom, and the funds to be able to dive in, maybe go to some conferences, those kinds of things. And then scholarships and those kinds of things too. We offer them. There are plenty that are offered through the university, but we do offer scholarships as well. But again, those are based on our donor giving for that particular year. All students at VCU, if you're enrolled at VCU, you get free access to the Adobe Creative Cloud, which can be really fantastic. There's some tools there. You do not have to be a designer or trained heavily in design in order to use them. Adobe it can be a really flexible and user-friendly program to use to help improve your communication to the world. So we do have a makerspace. This is one of my more fun things to engage in, where if students want to start prototyping something, it's like a vacation within my job. You say you want to prototype, we can go into that makerspace and we are going to build all kinds of things. The first iteration is probably going to be embarrassing, but we're going to learn a lot in the process. Then we can move on to 3D modeling and 3D printers, but we do have things like vacuum form machines and laser cutters, all kinds of different things to play with within that space, just to get ourselves used to making and to learn things that we can't learn unless we are doing just that. And then we also have access to the 10,000 square foot makerspace at the College of Engineering. And there are courses that students can go through that can teach you everything from how to use a drill and a screwdriver through cutting metal with water. So so just depending on the scale of what it is that you're trying to build, if it is something physical, we do have access to other resources on campus, just outside of our own through our partnerships. But yeah, and there's lots more beyond this. These are just kind of the key points that we put out there. But at this point, I just want to say thank you for everyone. Mary Chris is gonna finish up. I have to jump over to a undergraduate curriculum committee meeting that I accidentally overscheduled with this. So it's been absolutely loving meeting the two of you who have come in here today and hearing your questions. Happy to meet afterwards. Mary Chris is going to go through how to apply to the program and then how to reach out to us afterwards. So I hope I get the opportunity to talk more with you and those who are watching this recording in the future. But thank you all, and I hope you have a lovely rest of your week. All right, take it away, Mary Chris.
Awesome. Thanks, Allison. All right. So just a couple last little things. Again, we are sort of focused right now on that December 15th deadline, which is our summer deadline. If you know that you're interested in our fall program, that application is going to open December 16th, and you could apply anytime after that point. But essentially, there's just instructions here. These slides will get sent out after about how you navigate to the application. So there's links on our website that go out to the graduate school. And then you're just making sure that you're applying. I think at this point, we're all the applications are for 2024 terms, but there were still some 2023 ones up there when we started these sessions. So just click on that application for other graduate programs, and you'll be able to find MPI through there. And then just a little heads up about what needs to be submitted on that application and what we don't need. So there's a statement of intent, and there's some prompts for that, just allowing you to reflect on what you're hoping to get out of the MPI. As you can see, we really just want to get to know students better, and there's a lot of different backgrounds that come into our program with lots of different interests. So it's really just your chance to sort of tell us what you're feeling excited about, what you're hoping to learn, what things you're hoping to explore. This does not have to be something where you have it all buttoned up and you know exactly like what you want to get out of the program. It's amazing if you do, but if not, it's just, what do you hope to explore? What are you excited about the program? We need a resume. The application form is going to ask you for the name and email address of 3 references. You do not have to get those letters in and attach them to the application. You'll just let the people that you selected as references know that once you've submitted your application, they're going to get an email with a quick form they can fill out and a place where they can upload a letter to that. And then I believe you get to pick a due date for that. And so you just want to give a due date within a week or two, whatever feels reasonable after the application is due. So to be able to submit the application, you just need the names and emails. You also have to enter a transcript request in the system. And there's also an option for you to upload an unofficial transcript if that is something that you have access to. We do not require, I'll skip kind of down, we do not require standardized testing at all. So there was a point in time where we required the GRE or GMAT or whatever the appropriate test was for folks who did not have 5 years or more of education, of work experience. And also, if someone was coming from an arts background, we required a portfolio. We just really have learned that none of those things seem to make a big deal in kind of whether we feel like we know the student or whether we accept them. So we don't require testing. We stopped requiring testing during COVID when everyone was sort of waiving those requirements because it was so hard to get tests done. It made no difference in our cohort. So we stopped doing that. And since that is not required, it is also optional whether you would like to submit a portfolio or not. So if you're from an arts background, amazing. If you'd like to submit a portfolio of your work, that's likely something you already have. But if you are coming from another background and you have a personal website that shows work that you've done, or you want to submit some examples of slide decks or business ideas you have, or collateral you've created for your job. We've had students put in writing samples. We've had students who have, music or writing as a hobby, and they have submitted some of those things. Anything that you think would help us get to know you better, we would love to see that, but this is not a requirement. There's instructions on the application. You enter all the information like the statement of intent and the resume and the email addresses on the application form. If you want to send a portfolio, there's instructions for emailing that to me so I can add it to your application materials. And that doesn't have to come in by the application deadline. That can just be something supplemental that you add on. And then, as Allison mentioned, we just have a slide here with some information. I will also drop my email in the chat, just like Allison and Michael did, but we also do have a general email that truly does make its way to us, and our website is there as well. There's also a lot more information in addition to the link to the application and our classes. There's also a link out to the Shift Retail Lab from our website if you're really curious about that as well. So I will leave that slide up. I am going to type my email in the chat. And then I'm also happy to take any kind of last wrap up questions about application process and that kind of thing. Okay. All right, let's see. I don't know. So a great question, Rachel. I do think your days would be pretty busy in Portugal. I love this question. Obviously, we love people's pets. I don't know if everyone else saw Michael's cat in the window behind him. I tried not to stop and say anything. Anyway, I believe your days would be very full, to be honest, in Portugal, from what I've heard from students. So I think, we have housing. So something to think about with that Portugal experience, students need to pay their own airfare and their expenses like food and things while you're there. But the admission to the European Innovation Academy, as well as your housing while you're there, is provided with the tuition that you're paying for the NO 600 course. So a couple things on bringing pets with you. We'd have to check with the housing to see if that was okay. And then also, from what I hear from students, you tend to be away from that housing kind of at the venue where EIA is held for a good portion of most days. So certainly something we are absolutely willing to ask a little bit more about and kind of help you investigate, but not 100% sure. And then the question about more about classes, the minimum of 12 credits for financial aids, does that still apply? That is a great question, Rachel. So you're asking about, as an undergraduate student, to be a full-time student, you need 12 credits to be considered full-time. When you become a graduate student, that switches to 9 credits. And so if you noticed on some of those semesters, there were only 9 credits accounted for, that is because 9 credits is full-time at the master's level. So you would need generally to be full-time 9 credits a semester. And you may also have noticed that in those final semesters, we usually just have that NO 652 course listed. If you choose to take another 3-credit elective to make yourself full-time, that's totally fine. You can take above and beyond the 6 credits of electives that you need. And we absolutely have students who choose to do that. So that just kind of depends on full-time whether you need that full-time status for a myriad of things, what for insurance or financial aid or loans or that kind of thing, or international student status, anything like that. 9 credits is full-time. and you can always take additional credits. Hopefully that answers your question. All right, any other questions? Awesome. Well, thank you both so much for being here. We will send out a recording of this and send out the slides as well. I think you have all of our email addresses as well as the general one that is up on the slide right now. So, feel free to reach out, and we're happy to answer any questions at all. So thank you so much for your time and for being here today. And hopefully you learned something from hearing from Michael. I always think you learn the most from our students, and then hopefully you got some of the nuts and bolts as well, just to give you some general information. But have a wonderful afternoon.